Hey everybody, Invisiblekatana here, doing my review for Mortal Kombat! In my pseudo-techno Sub-Zero mask that I got in Las Vegas. Also, in my ridiculously giant massage chair. It's just in the way, and I'll move it during the week. So next weekend review should be back to normal, but it's big. I got boxes, as you can see. So it's here for now. It's here. Mortal Kombat. I saw two movies the day I saw Mortal Kombat. One was the trash anime movie Demon Slayer, which you can watch my review on that and how I hate it, and the show is garbage, the movie's garbage, the anime is garbage, the story is garbage. It's garbage. And then I came home, I got high, and I watched Mortal Kombat. And it was alright. It was better than garbage, that's for sure. It's funny. I like Mortal Kombat. I realized actually before I saw the movie, it actually dawned on me. I was like, I've actually played every Mortal Kombat game. Like, you don't really think about that sort of thing sometimes. And it's like, I'm not excessively into the lore of Mortal Kombat. I'm a lot more familiar with it now thanks to the most recent games, because they went like full on, full story mode. And it was like, 9, 10, and 11. So entertaining to just have like the original stories and then, kind of what they did to change them around, and who the F knows. Mortal Kombat 12, the way 11 ended, I'm just like, I don't know. What do we do? It's not just having the characters go back in time and try to fix it. It's literally just all new all over again. And it's just like, okay, let's see what the F happens. So I'm excited for that. But anyway, I enjoyed the movie, but it definitely has its flaws. First off, actually I should say this. There will be spoilers later on. I'll let you guys know when we get there. But obviously, Kano, phenomenal. MVP of the whole effing movie. Kano and his effing jokes. When Liu Kang touched his arm, like, the fuck? Hilarious. Like, I love the guy. He's super funny. I hope that guy ends up insanely famous and we can all be like, that's Kano. I hope that happens because he was so funny. But I enjoyed the movie. I thought the Mortal Kombat of this movie, 10 out of 10. 100%. This was a, 10 out of 10. Probably a 9 out of 10 because there was a couple things. 9 out of 10 Mortal Kombat movie. As a movie, however, not so much. not so much. I think the main thing I do have to address first is, of course, we have a new character. We have Cole Young, if I'm not mistaken. So Cole Young comes in, and it's like, okay, everyone kind of said the same thing. It's like, do we really need a new character? It's to introduce us, more common audiences, people who aren't into the games like that, into the world of Mortal Kombat. It's like, he's our introductory character. He's the, what is that? What's this thing? What's over there? He's that character. He's supposed to be that character, I should say, because that's where the main thing comes in. And once again, that leads right to MVP Kano, because he's the guy who does that. Cole Young comes into the movie. He's a fighter. Okay. If you like Mortal Kombat, I just want to get into spoilers because I have so many questions about a couple things. If you like Mortal Kombat, you have to see it because they do a good enough job. If you like action movies, yeah, you can just watch the fight scenes and they do a good enough job. If you're just like average moviegoer, if it looks interesting, I think you'll be entertained by it. It just won't be, it'll be kind of just like, oh, that's a cool action movie, and that's about it. As someone who likes Mortal Kombat, and more specifically, really wants to see the next great video game movie, I was like, dang, I wanted it to be like 100 million things. Like Sonic, I think, no one mentioned, in the couple of reviews I saw, no one's talked about Sonic. I think Sonic is our number one right now. Like, I know everyone loves to be like, the first Mortal Kombat movie is like the number one video game movie. I'm pretty serious. I think Sonic is better than the old Mortal Kombat movie. I think it's more entertaining. It's been a long time since I've seen that first one, but I'm like, I think that captures it just like, the old Mortal Kombat captures Mortal Kombat. But it depends on what you like. The point is, I thought this would be the next great one. It was not. So we're going to get into spoilers. I think you should see it. I think it's actually worth seeing personally. If you like action, you like it. If you like Mortal Kombat, you'll definitely like it. If you think it's interesting, I think you'll like it because you'll get what you came to see. Like, it's gory, it's violent, it's got action, and it's like you're gonna get pretty much anything you would expect to get out of this. So I think everyone that wants to see it or like is in the gaming camp and things like that, all those people should definitely see it. I don't think that many people will be disappointed. unless you just somehow, unless you're like one of those weird idiots that went to like Deadpool and was like, well, R-rated. I didn't know that it was R-rated. I think only those types of idiots would not like this. Or like, it's a video game movie, and then they're like, oh my god, his arms, and then they're like freaked out by the gore and blood because it's rated R, and they're shocked or something. So aside from those random people, I think everyone would actually enjoy the movie. So getting into spoilers, I thought he took money to lose when he came in. Cole was like, yeah, who's gonna do this for $200 last minute? And then he lost the fight, and everyone was mad. I was like, he could have just won that fight. I thought that he was there to lose. Like, the guy literally says, put on a good show, as if, like, make sure that you look like you're trying to win, but then you lose. But when they actually go through that whole fight, which is super weird, there's always like, don't give up. I'm like, this dude is done for. Like, his head is locked, his arm is locked. He's not Jesus Christ. He can't just, like, die and come back later. I'm like, this dude needs to tap. But everyone was like, oh, he tapped out. Like, what was he gonna do? This man was dying. Like, he was elbowed in the brain. And it was just like, are you gonna get up or what? I'm like, he lost, guys. Like, it was over. It was over. Which is weird. Once again, the part where I was like, I thought he was paid to lose that fight. He had that dude 100% down on the ground. And then I was like, he somehow, like, got out of it. And then he was, like, in the double lock. And I was like, oh, okay. Because I was like, it was kind of unconvincing that he, like, suddenly he didn't have that hold. And then he lost and they went through everything. And they never brought up, like, the guy didn't come back like, hey, thanks for throwing the fight. Here's your cut or whatever. That never came up because he was supposed to just win the fight. He just sucks now. And I was like, no one could have, like, he had this dude. And it looked unconvincing that he even failed to keep the guy on the ground. I thought that was a part of the show. And it was like, oh, he actually lost? That doesn't make any sense. Why did the guy say, like, put on a good show? And why does he fight for $200? And how was that not his sister? That was his daughter. Like, that really got me. I was just like, oh, that's his daughter. I thought they were doing, like, the older brother, younger sister deal because she was just cool with him. They were just doing, like, the cool, the dad with the daughter, and they just have a cool relationship like that. But I thought for sure that was just going to be, like, his little sister, and, that's just how I thought it was. So I thought that was interesting, and it was just the way it went, like, his wife doesn't watch him fight, and I just assumed that was, like, just a friend, where it was, like, she cares about him, but she's like, I hate, watching him do that, and stuff like that, and once again, that also played into it, because I thought it was him taking dives all the time, and that's why I thought she was like, oh, I don't, like, I don't watch him do that anymore, because it's like, I just watch him get beat up, and that confused me. I thought all that dialogue was, like, leading to, like, how he just takes dives and stuff, and it didn't. And I was like, oh man, I guess I'm just crazy. But I wasn't the only person, some of the reviews I saw, people mention that. And I was just like, all that dialogue, like, why was he going there for $200? I guess I don't know. I guess it was just 200 period just to fight. But I thought for sure, I'm like, that barely makes sense. I guess the guy just needed a show to recoup his $200. But the way they did it, I thought for sure he was taking dives the whole time. And then it was like, oh no, he could have won that fight, which he should have won because he totally had that dude locked down. And then that was just it, because he was like the former champion and all this. And I was like, that is so weird. Like, every bit of dialogue in that opening scene, I'm like, oh, this dude is like, he takes dives now. Like, that's like his thing. And that wasn't it. That was just all the dialogue made it seem that way, to me at least. But that was interesting. We get introduced to Jax. Obviously, I skipped over the whole Scorpion Sub-Zero thing. It was a great scene. Except Sub-Zero did speak English. He said something, like, the last thing he said in English, and I was like, because he definitely said, like, for the, and I heard him say, because, like, I heard him say something else, because he said it pretty quick, but I was like, oh, hold on. Like, I heard, like, the, or for, or something like that, and it was definitely in English, and it may have been, like, that whole sentence, because it was such a quick sentence, and I'm like, I let it go. That was early on, and I was getting high already, and I was just like, okay. And I just let it go. But he definitely spoke English, and that was super weird. Also, speaking, since we're on Sub-Zero, I want to give a huge shout out to whoever was like, you know what? Let's just make Sub-Zero the main boss of the movie. 100%. Sub-Zero is my favorite character. I guess technically second Sub-Zero, because the first Sub-Zero, well, I guess it depends on where you go. Because originally, I think the movie does some interesting stuff for sure. The Arcana stuff like that, and the way they kind of tell the story of Sub-Zero and Scorpion. So in the games, I guess for anyone who's not like super in depth, in the games, it was kind of originally the story of the movie. It was Scorpion was he's doing his thing with his family. Sub-Zero and his crew come in and it's just like, we're just gonna kill you, and that's it. And so that was like the actual story. Like Sub-Zero was actually the bad guy. Scorpion always seemed evil, but technically he was made into like this hell demon because he just wanted revenge for his entire family being wiped out just because. It was literally just to kill him. And like just like in the movie, Sub-Zero was just evil. He took his crew, was like, I'm taking my crew, I'm gonna kill that crew, and that was it. He was just the bad guy. And so then eventually Scorpion kills him, and then the new Sub-Zero comes in. He's like, look, I'm not trying to do all that bad, evil stuff. Like, that was my brother, that's not me. And then later, they retconned it to be like, actually, it was never his brother. He was innocent the whole effing time. Quan Chi, which they reference, amazing reference, they just had the amulet. I was like, that's pretty sick. Also, Kitana's blade was in there. Her fan blade, very interesting. Once again, many questions that I have for potential sequels. I hope we get one, I will say that. But it was like, oh, okay, they retconned it. Quan Chi was the bad guy, and so it was different. And I was super curious. I was like, so is that what they're gonna do in the movie? Like, is he actually gonna be evil? Is he not gonna be evil? I'm probably a little confused, but I don't remember the time frame of that story, because when it was like, feudal Japan, I just assumed in the games they just kind of lived out in the mountains and lived old school, because they're like classic ninja, that sort of deal. That's what I thought happened in the game, and I'm pretty sure that's accurate. Because Sub-Zero is not like the Sub-Zero characters; they're not immortal. Like I didn't understand. Like he just lived forever. It was super weird. It was like I've been doing this for centuries. And I'm like, why though? Because he doesn't like. It was just weird that was a change that they made, and that's why for sure I thought it was gonna be like Quan Chi. Because I'm like, well, Sub-Zero's like his clan doesn't just live forever. Like he has ice powers. He's not immortal, or like it was just weird. I was like, why does he live forever? That's not a thing. Like and it was just like I don't know. Like they just did that because I guess they felt they had to make it feudal Japan to have like the epic sequence where like, oh, he picked up the kunai, which by the way, just being a giant nerd about this stuff, that's actually what kunai are used for. Like the blade and stuff. I was like, oh, they're using the kunai for gardening and stuff. That's actually what those are used for. So like Naruto just lied to us. Like they're just like, oh, I'm the guy to throw on my kunai. They never did that. It was mostly shuriken and there's like, I don't remember what they're called, but they're basically like rectangular long blades that you like have to throw in a very unique way. Like I don't think I can master that, but I was like, that's super cool. It was a random nerd thing, but that's actually accurate. Like if you're wondering, like it's just like when you use a shovel, it's the same thing. But that's what kunai were mostly used for, was actually digging and stuff. So super nerd moment, but I just was like, that's actually like historically accurate. I just liked it. And then of course, I love that opening sequence. Scorpion was like, oh, my family's dead. Amazing shot when he drops the buckets and the water like it's rushing over the stone steps, and it like has like the brush and stuff in it. I was like, that looks really good. Like that was a great use of slow motion, and then it kind of the focus kind of pulls in as it's like getting to the water. I was like, that was just a great, like, just that little moment. I was like, that's an amazing visual shot. Like there's some really good visual moments in this. But goes home, sees his dead wife, his dead son, and so crazy epic moment comes in, and he's just like, boom, 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 kill you guys, takes everybody down, goes to fight Sub-Zero, and I think that was the first moment I was a little disappointed, and it was just like, I didn't feel that fight was as epic as it could have been, and that might seem weird, and I was just like, something about it felt a little slow. And I think it's just because you have one actor who's younger and one actor who's older. And the guy who's Sub-Zero, Joe Tolson, that dude can fight. Like, he's in the show Warrior, which if you have not seen it, I promise you're missing out on some of the greatest martial arts you will ever see on a TV show. But he's in that. He's one of the dudes from The Raid. He was like the sergeant or whatever in that movie. That was him as well. So if you've seen The Raid, he's the guy who ends up fighting. I think he was the guy who fought like the crazy long haired dude like early on in the movie. So he was in there. He's in Warrior. Like this dude can fight. Also, he doesn't look like it in this movie, but I'm telling you, I swear to God, if he was a little bit younger and they did a live action Naruto, that guy could be Rock Lee. I swear to God, he looks like Rock Lee. Like if you watch Warrior, like just his eyebrows are like the hair. I was like, this dude should be a live action Rock Lee. That should happen. Adult Rock Lee. Who cares? Like. That's the guy right there, I'm telling you. But anyway, that first fight sequence, I was just like, this was a little slow. It just felt like all hands. And I'm like, I know he has, like, Scorpion isn't Scorpion yet. He's still Hanzo Hasashi. But Sub-Zero's still Sub-Zero. And we see him do it later when he fights Jax, where, like, he does, like, mediary attacks where it's like, okay, I'm gonna like hit you in the arms, and he's like, boom, a little bit of freeze here. He hit him with like the paralyzer, if that old reference from Kung Pao into the chicken. Um, but he was hitting him on the shoulder like for like a second at a time before he like broke his arms off. And that whole opening fight where I'm like, you literally froze this man's family, and the whole fight they're just doing this, and I'm like, this feels a little off. Like it felt a little slow, and he doesn't use his superpowers at all. And I guess you could be like, it's a fair fight sort of deal, whatever. But I'm like, no, he was fighting for his life. Like he got scratched in the face, and there were moments where it was like he was struggling to get the upper hand. It didn't seem like he was toying with them to me. I'm like, it looks like he's actually struggling in this fight. They're actually going back and forth. And then he just doesn't use his power at all during that fight, just to even F with them. And I was like, that just feels kind of dumb. I was like, it felt slow paced and a little awkward that Sub-Zero didn't use his abilities in that fight at all. So I was just like, okay, yeah, I still enjoyed it, but I was definitely a little bit disappointed, where I was just like, I feel like something's missing here. And it was the fact that he doesn't use his powers at all. On the man he specifically came to kill, he doesn't actually use his powers on him, except for like, I think like a split second at the end of that, if he does it at all. I think honestly he doesn't actually freeze him in any way, shape, or form. He just, like, he gets him in the end and he stabs him, which he totally should have died from right there, because he drags it up. Once again, amazing gore. But like they do that, and he's like, I won the fight. He thought he was dead when he double stabbed him in the arm. He was like, I'm just gonna make sure you're dead. And he like jerked it again, and he woke up like, oh dang, that hurt. And then he like because he was already passing out, and he like did the double check and was like, ooh. And like I was like, that was a little rude. That was effed up. But he thought he killed him. Of course, Hanzo Hasashi lives. He goes to see. He hears his daughter crying. Tries to just reach out to his family. He couldn't get there. As soon as he dies, boom, he goes to hell. Raiden comes in with a spectacular effect. I liked what they did with the weather stuff, where it was like every time Sub-Zero comes in, like, it's snowing. When Raiden came in, boom, it just rained, and I didn't even think of it. I didn't think that was him. I was just like, oh, it's just like a dramatic thing that happened. Like, he burns and goes to hell. It's just a cinematic cool thing. It was like, no, Raiden's coming. He appears, thunderstorm with rain, and I was like, that makes perfect sense. I've never thought of that. It just looked cool. His visuals were amazing, and that's about it for Raiden, because he does nothing. He's kind of a dick when like everyone comes in and he's like, this is all the heroes I got, and then he's kind of super irrelevant in like the whole rest of the movie. And it was just like, so that's Raiden. Well, that's my whole thoughts on Raiden. Great intros, visual, like phenomenal, top to bottom. The CG stuff was great. Even his costume I just thought was okay. And then he was in the movie, and that's about it. That's it for Raiden. So got on cool stuff. Jax, I don't know what's wrong with that man. 6 tours, and he was just like, you get your family out of here. I'm gonna take this shotgun, and I'm gonna get this dude who can like, freeze things. I got him. And then of course he mentions the 6 tours, and that time Sub-Zero was clearly effing with this dude, because he used his ice quite well, for sure. And it started off, and it was like, oh, okay, he's effing with him. The shotgun thing, even though it was in the trailer, actually seeing it, it's still just, I will always remember that. Like, that is going to be one of the things I remember forever from this movie. Sub-Zero just grabbed a shotgun, and as he was freezing it, Jax pulled the trigger, and it just went, and like, it didn't just stop the bullets and just kept them from coming out. They came out, and they were just instantly frozen. And it was like, you see them technically still slowly stretching, like they weren't perfectly frozen into place. And I was like, that is such an amazing visual. I'll never forget it. And I love that. He broke the gun, and then he was just effing with them. And then he did the little, like, kind of freezing his arms in places. And then it was like the final grab. And he just twists and just rips his arms off. And then he just pushes them off the thing. And the funny thing is, I guess because I knew it was going to happen, I was like, okay, like, man, he ripped his arms off. That's Jax's thing. When he fell and they had that had to be a person, because otherwise that was the most detailed dummy I've ever seen. But the body fell and like his top half hit the thing. That was more visceral to me than anything, all the fake stuff. Because I was like, ooh, I didn't think he was gonna just go bow and hit his head and then fall to the first floor. I'm like, he's gone. That man, the noise his body made or whatever that was, like, I feel like it has to be a detailed dummy, because even the amount of padding you would need, I just don't know. I'm just like, I feel if that was a person, that was a heck of a job. There's some good stunt falls in this for sure. People on wires, like Liu Kang was taught. I know I'm jumping all over, but every time I think of some minute tangent I want to go on, I have to. But man, there's some stunt falls in this that I really appreciated, but him hitting his face, I was like, oh my goodness, like it got me for sure. So Jax is out of the movie for a little minute. Then Cole, of course, ends up finding Sonya as he was told to. They have a conversation. We meet the MVP Kano. He has one of the greatest little background lines ever when they're talking about the tattoos and stuff. Also, more references. Kotal Khan was shown in this. That was actually kind of cool. Nightwolf as well was shown, so that was pretty interesting. I'm sure there's a couple other things I didn't even notice as well. But Sonya's explaining like, oh no, I don't have a marking. And in the background, Kano was just like wah wah. And it was like the first time in a super long, probably the first time ever, honestly, where someone doing the wah wah actually made me laugh, because like the way he sounded in the background, and it was just like I didn't expect him to even be involved once that sentence like started and the camera left him behind. I'm like, Kano's over there, he's out of it, and just to hear that random wah wah cracked me up. I was like, that was super funny. Most of his lines also super funny, but they go through. Reptile comes in, or some version of Reptile or whatever. They kill it. It was cool. It was a full-on xenomorph, pretty much. Like, the blood was acid and everything, so it was like all of that was entertaining. Sonya threw Kano's knife into his leg. Hilarious. Him being mad about it, also funny. Like, everything about Kano was great. So all of that was cool. They kill Reptile, and it's like, all right, give you $3 million. We'll find out where we have to go, and they head off to Raiden's temple, which he used to run guns through, so it was super empty. But for whatever reason, the whole temple is like. So I know there's like an inside portion of the temple and stuff like that. So I don't know if that was just like the meeting spot and they never went into it. But I'm like, it's kind of weird that he never once, as a guy who ran guns through that vicinity, we'll even call it, he didn't just check and be like, oh, there's all these magic things and there's like people over here. Like, I get, because they never show that it's like magically hidden from view or anything. It's just like, if you just go in it, you're fine. And then the inside of it is the whole temple, and that can be shielded, but like everything outside is just like, it's just right out there. So I just thought that was a little weird. Like, no one that he met with or anything like that, they just didn't go into the tunnel and just be like, oh dang, look at all of this. I thought that was a little weird. So one of the other questions I had was like, he ran guns through there, but he never saw like all the monks, because it's not like they just popped up. Like he did that so long ago that they never checked. Like, it was just weird. I was like, so he ran guns through there, but never, he never found all of it. Just once again, just let it go. So they go to the desert. They jump out of a plane. They land in the desert. I don't know if they discussed it, but wasn't it weird that they didn't somehow manage to drop anywhere way closer? He had a thing as they were walking to be like, oh, this is where we have to go. Why wouldn't the plane have worked for that when they could have just kept flying? And once again, unless they put some insane line in there where it was like, yeah, I'm not gonna go an extra mile or two. Like, it made no sense. Like, they jumped out in the general vicinity, but I'm like, you couldn't have jumped way closer where, because they basically do like the little pan, the fade in, like 2 or 3 times. So I'm like, how they seem like they've been walking for an eternity, and I'm just like, they had a plane, and then they jumped out of it, but they were like nowhere close. They basically almost got lost because that's how far away they landed from the place he knew where it was located. And he was like, I guess it's kind of here, so we'll just jump out of a plane instead of being like, let's just take enough fuel to circle a little bit. Like, it's once again very confusing if you have to think about it, because I'm like, why would they be so far away when he specifically said, I know where that is. I used to run guns through there. It's confusing. That whole desert didn't just magically pop up right there. It's been there for a minute. It doesn't look that different. So it was weird. Once again, another random weird thing. Another weird thing. Melina, when she first showed up, it's not her in particular. It's the whole weird thing with Outworld where it's just like the sand desert, except it's more blue. It's a big rock quarry. That's pretty much what it is. And so I'm gonna officially take this off now because it's gotten to the point where it's too much. Ooh. So we get to the Outworld sort of rock quarry sort of deal, and Melina has like weird voice modulation on, and I thought that was just her thing because Shang Tsung showed up in a different scene earlier where that wasn't happening, and so I was like, I guess this is just the thing for Outworld, and I thought that was a little odd. And as they go through and this scene ends, they really did something that I thought was super funny. And you may or may not notice it if you're like paying attention to it. It may just be because of like the production side of me. The way that they were lit was clearly top down because you could see their shadows were almost like right on them. But the sun was like way off in the distance, like either a setting or rising sun. And I was like, they didn't really think about that when they did the CG. They just had to make like a sunrise or sunset sort of looking location. But the way it looked was like, I mean, once again, you probably wouldn't notice this if you weren't really looking for it. But I specifically looked at the sun because I was like, even before they showed that, I was like, they look like they're clearly lit from like top down because it was that sort of that blue filter looking like fluorescent. That I couldn't think of the word, but it was like it looked too fluorescent to me. So I was like, they're lit from top down, and so I was like, oh yeah, because their shadows are basically like circles right around them. So it wasn't from like a position. Like if I put my hand up, the shadow was coming this way, but top down is the shadow is just like, you know, right on your skin, so it's almost 1-to-1. And so I was like, okay, so they're clearly lit from top down. And then as it panned up, I was like, and there's the sun over there, and it's not like it's, you know, even if it's behind just the way they did it, I was like, that's not how it would look in the actual sun. Once again, a minute thing that I noticed. They kind of worked with it a little bit, but I was like, their shadows still wouldn't be like top down non-existent shadows. But I kind of saw what they were trying for, but I'm like, no, the sun's like right over there. That doesn't really work too well. But that was weird. Just the way they showed Outworld, the weird voice modulation stuff, the fact that they showed it. If I'm being totally honest, like Shang Tsung had a throne, but because this was sort of also a weird prequel to the actual Mortal Kombat tournament, it was just like this mystical thing where it was like just nothingness behind him. It was just like a kind of a orange grayish sort of sky just in space. Like, it was super weird. It was just like, this is like the ultimate magical throne location. It's literally not a building. People like come through, show up in portals, but there was also a giant door at the end where Goro showed up. So I'm like, is he in something, or is he just, was that door just there to be like, this is the floating space, here's the tunnel, here's the door before you get to like the floating space chamber that is Shang Tsung's throne. So another weird looking thing. It was just like, why is Outworld like this? Like, it wasn't a place. It was so ethereal. It was weird because I'm like, it's not like they're just standing in floating space like we see later, the world between worlds or whatever you want to call it, whatever Raiden actually called it. It was just this weird space, and just his throne was there, and then the villains would show up and talk to him. But then there was a door at the end. I'm like, it's just all this weird, they're just floating like way up in the sky type. It was some Code Geass type stuff. If that reference makes sense, good. If not, I apologize, but that's appropriate. Like, there's some Code Geass type stuff. Like, there's just, you're in the clouds and just in space. It's weird. So voice modulation stuff, a little odd. I'm very curious what they're gonna do with the sequel movie, if they're gonna ever have Kitana in it. Like, they almost have to. Like, you can't not have Shao Kahn. So I'm like, they already had her blade there, so they know who she is and all this other stuff. I'm also curious if they're gonna make her black because Melina is a clone of her. So I was like, are they gonna do that, or are they just gonna be like, Melina's Melina and she dead anyway? Which is another weird thing about the movie, where they could come back because they make a reference like, in my world, death is just another portal or something like that. I'm like, okay, it's an easy way to bring Kano back because he gets poked in the eye, so just give him the replacement so he can keep his laser. The Sub-Zero thing is super easy. Like, okay, he's dead, but then we just do a couple of little things here and there, and then surprise, surprise, we have new Cybot, which I'm once again very excited because I love the actor who was Sub-Zero in this movie, and I'm like, him as a straight up bad guy. I forgot this was reflecting. You can't see it, but I can see it in my TV, and I'm like, what is that? And I forgot I had this. I didn't actually turn it off. It's just sitting down, but it's just like, I was like, what is that? But I hope that's super cool when he actually becomes Noob Saibot, if we get a sequel, which I still hope we do. Man, there's still so much more to talk about. Like, all the weird nitpicks of the movie, the cool things I like. Kano is still entertaining. Kano wins. He rips the heart out and everything, which seems so easy. Like, I think he cut him and then like reached in and did it, and I was just like, that still seems super easy because I'm like, there's bones and stuff still, and it was just like, no biggie. He's now a chosen one. Boom, he can just rip hearts out like it's nothing. But go through all this stuff. Once again, I know I'm jumping all over the place. If you couldn't tell, by the way, I'm high. It's a high review. So after all the jumping all over the place, we get introduced to Liu Kang. Um, they made him weird that he didn't seem super important. Like he still had that connection to Raiden, where it's like, I was the one tasked with gathering all of the chosen people. So I was like, okay, he still has that relevant role as a character. He's still the dude who's connected to Raiden, which doesn't say much because Raiden's hardly in it, so it doesn't feel important to be like he's the guy connected to the god. And it's kind of just like, yeah, he's just another dude. Like him and Kung Lao are both just like kind of side characters, but still cool. A lot for some, like Kano and the Funk, like the Funk line, amazing. First sequence against Shang Tsung, he gets kind of beat up a little, and then Kung Lao, he's got like the coolest entrance ever. Like him popping out of the ground and doing the spins and stuff. I'm like, that honestly, I think that was the 100% 10 out of 10 moment where I was like, that's Mortal Kombat. Like him doing that, and he got his fatality with the blade. That was so good. Like Kung Lao was, honestly, Kano was the funniest. Kung Lao was the best Mortal Kombat thing in this entire film. That was freaking Kung Lao to a T. The dude was doing the moves. The introduction was phenomenal. The fact that he was helping them, but he was kind of a dick about it, because that's actually how Kung Lao is, because Liu Kang was always like, this is my duty and stuff like that. And he was like the that's why he's like the main character of Mortal Kombat. He's like the classic, chosen one, character. And then Kung Lao is always the number two, but he's the descendant of the great Kung Lao. And so it's like, he was always that cocky, kind of pseudo douchebag character, but he can do some good stuff. So he was perfect. Like, I forgot who the actor was that played him, but man, that was 100% perfect Kung Lao. And then they killed him, and I was so pissed. I was like, they're not actually doing this. And then like, he's getting his soul sucked, as Kamal said, who I'm kind of iffy about. Love the visual. I like the look. His jokes did not hit as well as Kano, so his accent and everything, and the way he was super talky, I'm like, even in the game, I don't think he's really like that. Like, they made him a little jokey, like, he has the movies, like, got the spins and stuff like that, but I feel like, and, me not being super crazy into it, I don't think he was that funny of a character. Even that minute joke, he's still super serious game-wise, but I don't think he's ever been, like, the comedic guy. It was always Kano, especially after the original movie, like, that, ever since then, that's why he's Australian, just because of that. And now it's led to this, a perfect Kano. It's amazing. But the way they did it was like, okay, they introduced those characters, they look cool. For some reason, Liu Kang was dressed like Ryu the whole effing movie. I said that when I saw the trailer, I'm like, and everybody said, I'm like, he's dressed like Ryu. Like, he's got the white and the red, and then after Kung Lao dies, he takes the red, he's got the actual red bandana too. Because the silhouette of him, I was like, yeah, that's Liu Kang. Like, when he first shows up in the sun, he's got like the sash and everything, I was just like, that's Liu Kang. That's super cool. Like, I was like, I realized, I was like, he's got like a perfect look and perfect arms. The dude was ripped. Like, I was like, dang, I'm jealous. But, and I normally don't. I'm generally just like, I wish I could do that. But he was like 0% body fat. Like, if he had a piece of fat, he probably just, like, his system wouldn't understand it. The dude was so in shape. I was just like, dang, that's hard work. Nobody's gonna talk about his abs. It's a shame. It's a real shame. But he looked good in the movie. He looked good. He was doing some cool fire effects. I thought the flame was good. The CG for that was good. Of course, he does the dragon move on Cabal at the end. 100% Mortal Kombat moment. They literally did it where the dragon actually ate him first and then went down, because that would probably be like, oh, that's weird. But that's what he does in the game, which I noticed when I watched it in the movie form. I was like, that is weird that the flaming dragon bites him and then hits him with like the full pillar of flames. I was like, that is a little weird when it pauses to bite. So it's funny. Different mediums, you just see it different ways. I was like, holy crap, that is the actual fatality. Like, or not fatality, but I think it's just his X-ray move now. But the dragon bit him and then went down. I was like, 10 out of 10 moment. 10 out of 10. Like, that was fantastic. Melina was teleporting all the time. That was super cool. They actually did the scene where her full mouth rips open. That looked gross, but it was just interesting. I was like, holy crap, she does the full thing. That was great. They had Natara, I think is her name. I forgot she existed in Mortal Kombat. That was during like the pseudo weird times when we were in like Deadly Alliance and Deception type stuff, where they were just like they were throwing some new people in where nobody cares, But he said her name. Like, even when I saw her, I was like, I think I know this. And then he said her name. I was like, wow, that's like Deadly Alliance, and like there's some people in there that have made it. Bo Raicho got his mention. You know, he's come a long way from that first time he was introduced as like the fat guy that vomits and farts on you and stuff like that. So, you know, he got his nice reference. He seems like a much cooler character now than his introduction. That's probably why he was playable, I think, in MKX, wasn't he? Or something. They added him in there, but they kind of kept him away for a minute where it was like, oh, there he is. Like, does he vomit and fart on you still? Maybe, yeah. We'll see what happens. But I think he was in MKX. But, yeah, I couldn't believe they put her in there, of all characters. They put Reiko in there, because if I'm not mistaken, and he's one of the characters that, once again, when it comes to Mortal Kombat, some people come in and they're just like, the community's just like, nah, not that guy. And Reiko is one of those people. I always saw him as Dick Grayson because I was like, he's Nightwing, but he just wore red or burgundy. And so when I first saw him, all I could think of was Batman. And I guess it just doesn't matter. He matters so little. Unless that was his new look. I don't know. They may have shown his new look in one of the new games, but I'm pretty sure he's only been referenced and not actually seen. And if he has, then that's my bad. Like, he's Reiko, so you gotta admit, it's not worth caring about. But the dude that they got for him was just Hammer Scream guy, who just went, and he swung a hammer. And I'm like, could they have tried a little bit with that? Even if it's like, sure, he's just a random hammer guy. He can have words. He could speak. Excuse me. He could do something. But instead, he was just like, and he swung a hammer. But he did give me one of my favorite lines in the movie after Jax killed him, which he smashed his head, and I was a little sad, which I don't think is a fatality. I think that's one of his brutalities, where he just smashed the head. Or it was a fatality. You know, sometimes they switch brutalities and fatalities around. Like, it's this, now it's that. But he smashed his head, and it was kind of upsetting, because that was like, once again, you know, it was literally like the Mortal Kombat level, and I'm like, oh, they're like Mortal Kombat now, because it was like no tournament, pre-tournament stuff, and a tournament happened at the end where everyone split off and fought their villain, and I was like, oh, they're at the pit, and he smashed his head, and he gave an amazing line, like, oh yeah, these motherfuckers work. Hilarious line from the guy that was Jimmy Olsen on Supergirl. So it was really weird watching this movie and be like, that's Jimmy saying, you know, just dropping F-bombs and stuff and bashing dudes' heads in. But good for him, good for the actor. He did a good job too. I was like, it was so weird to see him, but I was like, he's a good Jax. Like, he was definitely a younger Jax for sure, like classic military dude. But I'm like, because I'm so used to older Jax now with the newer games. But I was like, yeah, that was Jax. So he was like kind of the cocky dude. They made him like, you know, 6'2" or not, like he was a tough dude. And his arms, once again, looking great. They just got, you know, frozen and ripped off, and then they gave him the little chicken arms. Hilarious. I love that. And then his power was to like become a part transformer, and then like new arms formed. And I was like, okay, that's where the magic comes in, huh? They can't just have powers. You know, we're dealing with alternate realms, dimensions, and whatnot. And they were like, guys, we have to make a reason for everyone to have powers. I'm pretty sure Sub-Zero doesn't have powers though. That revolve around him having a little dragon ring. I think he's just dead. Like, or you know, he's dead. He's been dead for a long time, and he's got, or alive for a long time. I honestly don't know what this version of Sub-Zero is. It's really confusing. But he's either just immortal, or he died and something happened, kind of like with Scorpion, but in a much better way for Sub-Zero. It's just weird. Whatever he is, and he just has powers. But they're like, we gotta have these rings. That's why Kano can do this. Which means, I guess if he came back in the second movie anyway, he wouldn't be able to do that, because they based it all just on magic. So even if they brought him back, I guess just do the laser eye. That would be an easy excuse. Just make it fully cybernetic. Like, it's just weird. Like, all the villains are superpower sorcerers and demons and monsters, and they're like, but the human characters can only do this stuff if we give them this thing. Like, for what? Like, just give them powers. It makes no sense. I don't think Kung Lao had a thing either, if I'm being totally honest. I don't remember, but I'm assuming he did, because he was gonna find the tournament or whatever. So maybe he did, and they just didn't show it. But it's like, for what? Like, what is it? Like, it just makes no sense. It's a super weird thing to add when they didn't need to add it. Just say, yeah, they got powers. Like, people have abilities and they can unlock them, or literally anything. It didn't just have to be the chosen characters, because I mean, you can only go so far in the movies now, because you can't have every person fighting in the tournament, because now they all have to have powers or something. Like, if Stryker comes in, does he have to have the thing to help fight? And if he does, what is his power going to be, to like summon grenades now? It's weird, weird stuff. Like, they're going to have to like really pick and choose, and they can't kind of go all out now, because there are a lot of human characters, and you can't just, they can only fight if they have superpowers. I did love seeing Sonya do her, ring blast. It was kind of weird that they killed Melina, but they also killed everybody. So I don't know. I guess everyone's coming back anyway. But it's like, okay, like they all have powers, but they had to make an excuse for the humans to get powers, and just explain some mystical magic mumbo jumbo. That way, that's it. Because you literally have demons that have powers. It just doesn't, like, I don't know why they had to add that extra layer to be like, well, for Earthrealm, you can only do this magic if you get, the sigil. And I'm just like, for what though? Like, that just seems odd to me. That just seems odd to me. It just seems weird. It just seems weird to add that when you don't need to add it. It doesn't like help anything. Just say like, everyone can have powers. No one knows that. No one believes in magic. It's super easy. Boom. We can train you to unlock your ability, and that's it. It's it's simple. But they go in, they do what they do. Kung Lao's amazing, like I said. They killed Kung Lao, not super amazing. They end up eventually doing their split off. They kill off all the villains. That first fight, though, everyone was getting their butt whooped, though. I kind of enjoyed that the heroes were losing a little bit, but it was just interesting. But, they split off. They have their epic battles. Everybody's starting to win. By this point, Cole got his cool armor look, which they don't utilize. I didn't even realize that until I watched a review where they're like, the only time he actually uses the power based around his actual suit is in the fight with Goro, where he takes on damage and then he can redirect that damage throughout his body, or like, put it all into a fist and take all that energy and do that. He never glows after that, and I didn't realize that until I saw the review, and I was like, holy crap, they're not wrong in any way, shape, or form. He doesn't use that in the final battle as a way to help Scorpion, anything like that. He doesn't use his actual power. They're just like, they did in the beginning, and then after that they were like, just go with the weapon thing, because he can make weapons, which he only made 2, and I thought it was going to be like, oh, he can like make blades out of his outfit and stuff, and it was like, no, he can just make 2 tonfas, and one has a blade on it. Which he used to completely slice Goro's arm off. I didn't see that one coming. Also died, but he'll probably be back. It was just like, oh man, I didn't realize that until that review, and I was like, he does not use his power anywhere. That's weird. So, he got his powers and stuff. They go through all their fights. Eventually, Sub-Zero comes in, and he's like, boom, I'm coming in. I got your family. Now you come to me. We're gonna have this fight here. And they're going through. They're having their battle. Sub-Zero's amazing. And then, of course, he whips out the kunai, and it's like, oh, the last blade of Hisashi. And so, because of his blood interacting with his blood again, down the line, Scorpion comes back. This whole time, he's just been suffering in hell. He's just been like, man, I'm telling you, when I get out, I'm gonna do something. And so he finally got out, and he got to do some stuff, and it was pretty sweet. I enjoyed what we got to see from the battle. And then, of course, he had to team up as Cole was trying to get his family out, and he's like, yeah, and he's like punching at the ice, but he's knocking off like tiny little bits and pieces. They have their back and forth. Like I said, once again, didn't realize this till that review, but yeah, he doesn't use his power. He just uses, like, those blades become like all of his power. Like the 2 tonfas that he has, that becomes his power, as if that was it, just to get those 2 weapons. Not that that's not a thing, but like, you literally showed this dude take damage from Goro, where he blocks and takes all the hits, because that's his thing. He's, this manager, or whatever that old guy was, he was like, he's his punching bag, so he can take all the hits and keep fighting. And I was like, oh, that's, it ties into his power. He was protecting his family. His strength is his family, and that activated his power, and his power is to protect. It's to take the brunt force, and then keep fighting and use that pain that he's taken in. Take the pain, redirect it. And then that doesn't come up again. He doesn't use that against Sub-Zero, because I guess when it's a knife, it doesn't take energy. I don't know. It was just super weird. I was like, okay, another weird question I have to ask, which I didn't have to ask until I saw a review pointed out, and I was like, dang, they are right. Another problem. But the end fight was definitely cool. I still felt like, once again, something was just missing. I don't know what it was, 100%. Maybe it was that extra little oomph. with Cole coming in and like having much cooler abilities, which he had sweet powers, they just didn't use them. Because I'm like, him taking hits and being able to, being an actual fighter in general, he can like change his style up. He can like go full force at like some superpowered monster and like take a hit off of it. A million aspects, and you got a guy, Louis Tan, the guy who's Cole Young. He's a great martial artist. He's good. They could have come up with so many actual things. Like they came up with some great stuff, but I'm like, they could have utilized his power a lot. And even in the literal in-fight scene, they don't. So that was super weird. But of course, they ended up beating Sub-Zero. I enjoyed it. He was hearing a great ancestor speaking in Japanese. I don't know if Cole spoke Japanese. I thought that the whole time I was watching it, and I was just like, he's just talking, and like he's not saying that he gets it or not getting it, but he kind of just nods and figures it out. But it was just like, does he speak Japanese? Does he know what he's saying in any way, shape, or like, protect my bloodline? Gotcha. Like, I don't know what was happening. They're doing some My Hero Academia movie stuff. If you've seen the first movie, remember that scene where they're just like, Deku is talking to All Might, and they're literally having a conversation mentally, just like, that's literally in the movie. Sorry to do that, but I recently watched that movie, and that I forgot about that because I saw that movie years ago, and when I watched it, I was just like, wow, I forgot they did that whole conversation. Like, what, you're doing that? Like, it's hilarious. But wish they did more at the end fight scene, just a little bit more. The ending was good. Raiden's like, all right, you're banished now, get that out of here. All the dead villains get taken away, except Navarro. I think she like just died, and they didn't show her get wrapped up in smoke, but maybe they'll bring her back for some reason, I guess. But yeah, I enjoyed the movie. Definitely Mortal Kombat wise, phenomenal. Just not acting wise. That was totally wrong. I was thinking acting for some odd reason, but story-wise, that's what it is. The actors, I thought were good. They were just not given like the greatest of stories. Mortal Kombat, they did a good job with that part. The just do a story type of deal, they didn't do so great with that. But we'll see in the sequel. I do hope there is a sequel. Get some Johnny Cage, and then we'll have the actual. Maybe they'll do it. Maybe this is just like, oh, okay, they were figuring it out. They'll take the feedback. They'll get it right. The action's already good. It's just the story, and just get Johnny Cage and just tournament. That's it. Excuse me. Oh man, my allergies have been acting up all weekend. So I think that's more than enough of a ramble for this one. I think that's good. Yeah, I would love to know your thoughts on this. This might actually end up being saved for next weekend. Just so I can throw some footage, probably play some Mortal Kombat and just throw it up here. Maybe, maybe not. Excuse me. Holy crap. But yeah, I've been talking for more than enough time. Thanks for checking this one out. I would love to know your thoughts on Mortal Kombat. I enjoyed it. I think it was good. I do want a sequel. I want to see what they do next. Would love to know your thoughts. So please put your comments down in the comment section below. And of course, thanks for watching.